So just yesterday, as I'm recording this video, the Los Angeles Clippers finished off the 3-2 comeback against the Dallas Mavericks and were able to beat them in 7 games to move on to the second round and will now be facing the Utah Jazz. And something that I've been talking about off camera throughout this entire playoffs is that Kawhi Leonard is playing like the best player in the playoffs, and no one's really realizing it. And I made a video a while back talking about why I think Kawhi is the most underappreciated and overlooked player of all time, and that'll be at the top right corner of your screen right now. You can go ahead and check that video out as well, because I talk about a lot of similar things in this video that I'll be mentioning in today's video, and just how because Kawhi's not exactly a flashy player, he really doesn't get enough attention from the media and the recognition from fans that he deserves. But I think after this series, and especially after that dominant Game 6 where he had 45 points and also that Game 7 yesterday, he's finally getting some of the respect that he deserves. And I truly think that Kawhi, and I've said this throughout the entire last few years actually, that Kawhi has always been a top 3 player in the NBA, but because he's overlooked, he really doesn't get the recognition that he deserves. But I definitely think so far in this playoffs, he's been the best player in the entire league, and I'm going to be talking about that in today's video. But before we get started, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on any new videos. I've been posting tons of NBA content throughout the playoffs. I'm actually on an upload streak after today of 4 straight days of uploading daily, so I'm uploading a ton right now. Make sure you subscribe if you're new, and let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to be talking about is Kawhi Leonard's scoring in this playoff run so far against the Dallas Mavericks, and how he's probably been one of, if not the very best scorer in the NBA playoffs so far. And again, like I mentioned, he doesn't get a lot of recognition because he's not exactly like a flashy scorer. You would probably say that the best scorer in the series has been Luka Doncic by far, but Kawhi is actually putting up the exact same amount of points per game as Luka on much better efficiency. Again, he's more of an automatic and not exactly flashy scorer, so he doesn't get that much recognition. But so far in the playoffs, in the 7 games that he's played against the Mavericks, he's putting up 32 points per game on a ridiculous 61% shooting from the field, 43% from 3, and 93% from the line. So 60-40-90 as a small forward, which is absolutely insane. A 68% effective field goal percentage, which also is just incredible considering how tightly guarded he is sometimes. A 72% true shooting, which is absolutely insane. Like, it's out of this league how good that is for a small forward. And I know it's only 7 games, but still, throughout this playoffs, Kawhi's shooting 72% true shooting, which is a plus 16 relative true shooting, which means he's 16% above the league average true shooting. If you guys don't know what true shooting is, it's kind of like some complicated formula that basically just measures kind of your overall efficiency as a scorer, factors in free throws and everything like that. But also throughout the series, Kawhi's been the definition of a 3-level scorer, shooting 83% at the rim. He's very dominant, electric around there. Doesn't get not a lot of recognition for that. 57% from mid-range, which is absolutely insane considering, again, he has tons of contested shots in the mid-range, and also 71% from deep twos. The mid-range shot in general in basketball is not a very effective shot to take, but Kawhi consistently knocks it down, and 71% from deep twos is absolutely insane. And also, like I mentioned, 43% from 3. And also, I've talked about this a lot, but all this was by, well, being contested a lot and very closely guarded, and the fact that Kawhi is just scoring this efficiently so far is just absolutely insane. It's going unnoticed. This is like historic efficiency type of stuff in a playoff series on 32 points per game for a small forward, and we have to just recognize how good Kawhi has been when it comes to scoring in this series. Something else I want to talk about Kawhi's offensive game very briefly here is his playmaking, and how Kawhi doesn't necessarily stand out as a dominant type of playmaker like guys like LeBron James, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, and especially Luka Doncic do, but his playmaking is really underrated. Throughout this entire series, he consistently found wide open teammates after being doubled. He was doubled a lot on the perimeter when he was going off with his scoring game, and the Mavericks really tried at times throughout the series to make someone other than Kawhi beat them, and this worked at times, but also especially when he was in that zone and sometimes faced doubles on the perimeter, he did a great job of finding that open teammate, whether they were right next to them and he started a good sequence of ball movement, or if they were across the court making that great pass and making an assist. Kawhi's playmaking overall was very good this series. Also, when he was driving, he faced lots of crowding and double teams inside the paint and was able to kick it out. And like I mentioned, it's a little bit underrated just because Kawhi only averaged 5 assists in this series, but he was 6th in the NBA in the playoffs so far in secondary assists, and here in Canada we like to call that a hockey assist, where you're not the guy who passes it to the guy who scores, but you pass it to the guy who passed it to the guy who scored. And a lot of the times, just in general, Kawhi created a lot of great ball movement for his team. Like I mentioned, just drawing double teams, kicking it out, and starting sequences of great ball movement for this team. Now in the regular season, Kawhi was top 15 in the NBA in box creation with 11.2, and this is a stat that kind of measures how many open shots you create per game. Now unfortunately, for some reason I just can't find this stat for the playoffs, but if I were to guess, Kawhi would be almost in the top 5 in this stat, because watching this series, he had tons of times where he just created and started, like I mentioned, great sequences of ball movement and created open shots for his teammates. So overall, his playmaking this series was very good as well. Now, something you might be thinking is, so far, despite Kawhi's insanely dominant scoring, his historic efficiency in this series, and his very good playmaking as well, guys like Luka Doncic or Kevin Durant, for example, still might be a little bit better so far in the playoffs than Kawhi on the offensive side of the floor. And that's kind of a discussion you could have on the side here, and those guys might be slightly better than Kawhi offensively right now in the playoffs, but something that separates Kawhi from all these players, and why, in my opinion, he's far and away the best player in the playoffs so far this season, is his defense. And a lot of the time throughout the season, Kawhi got a lot of criticism from doubters that really didn't think his defense was the same anymore. There were a lot of people saying that he doesn't even try on defense anymore, and he's not nearly the same defender as he was back in those days from 2014 all the way up to 2019. But Kawhi in this series really showed that he's still a top 10 defender in the NBA. A lot of the time he wasn't used well, because for some reason throughout the series, and I was saying this a ton on my Instagram story throughout this series, but for some reason Tyronn Lue didn't want to put Kawhi on Luka at the start of this series, which personally I think is just common sense, and they tried lots of different strategies on Luka, doubling him at times throughout the perimeter, and really easily switching, and they had to make the adjustment of taking Zubac out of the game because he was a liability on Luka. But overall, in the last 3 games of the series, Kawhi was the primary defender on Luka, and this was a very good adjustment that Tyronn Lue made. Luka was absolutely cooking the Clippers in this series, and they had a few matchups that they thought they would work, like for example Nicholas Batum, Paul George, and even Marcus Morris. But these matchups didn't work as well as the Kawhi one did. When he started being the primary defender on Luka, it made it a lot tougher on Luka to sometimes even just get the ball. I mean, I'm not showing NBA clips in this video because I want to avoid copyright, but there are a lot of times throughout the series where Kawhi would not only press up on Luka near the logo to just cut off a passing lane, but really do that effectively so that someone else on the team would have to beat them other than Luka. And then when he was guarding Luka on ball, he was incredible. When Kawhi was guarding Luka, Luka went 9 of 24 from the field throughout the series and 4 of 13 from 3, and this doesn't even compare to what anyone else was doing to guard Luka. He was a great off-ball defender as well. Early in the series, when he wasn't being used the right way and wasn't guarding, obviously, the Mavericks' best player in Luka, he was still a very good off-ball defender, did what he needed to do defensively to help his team, was a great help defender, averaged 2.3 steals in this series, along with 1 block per game, and had a defensive box plus minus of plus 3.5, which is one of the best in the NBA playoffs so far. So overall, Kawhi was an incredible defender this series, and without him and the adjustment that they made of putting him on Luka, which by the way they should have done way earlier in the series, Kawhi should have been the primary defender on Luka the entire series. He was easily the best matchup to try to disrupt Luka, but when he was guarding him, he really did the best job of all of his teammates of shutting down Luka, and Kawhi proved in this series that he's still one of the best defenders in the NBA. There's a couple more things I just wanted to quickly mention here about some advanced stats and how Kawhi Leonard's impact on this team was just absolutely insane. I think the Mavericks probably would have won this series in either 4 or 5 games if it wasn't for Kawhi. He ranked near the top of the league in the playoffs in player efficiency rating with a 32.3 and a player impact estimate of around 20, and these stats are just absolutely insane for a small forward. He also had a 12.6 box plus minus, which was very close to leading the playoffs, and led the entire playoffs in offensive win shares, overall win shares, VORP, and also averaged 8 rebounds per game with a 12% rebound percentage, which is very good for a small forward as well. I mean, we all know that Kawhi throughout his career has been known as the board man, and for good reason. He's always been one of the best rebounding small forwards in the NBA, and he showed this throughout the series as well, averaging 8 rebounds per game. Overall, like I mentioned, his impact was insane on this team. They would be completely lost without him, and just because of all of these things, his dominant scoring efficiency, underrated playmaking, playmaking, his amazing defense, shutting down Luka at times, and his overall impact really shows that throughout the playoffs so far, he's definitely been the best player in the NBA. Like I mentioned, Kawhi is so underappreciated and overlooked, and he has been throughout his entire career, and I really highly suggest that you watch that video I made about this, about why I think he's the most underappreciated player that we've ever seen in the entire league. I'll link it down below in the description. Make sure you go check that out as well, because I really go into detail on why I think Kawhi is so overlooked. But overall, he's definitely playing like the best player in the playoffs, and he's so underappreciated. Just like I go on Instagram all the time, I see tons of posts about how amazing Luka Doncic and Kevin Durant and Devin Booker and all of these more flashy players, offensive players, have been in the playoffs so far, but I never see anything about Kawhi, and it just frustrates me because he's legitimately been playing like the best player in the playoffs so far, and he's not getting enough attention because of this. I legitimately think that if Kawhi keeps playing like this, the Clippers are going to have a really, really good chance to win the NBA championship this year, and Kawhi needs to get the recognition that he deserves. So there you have it. That is the end of today's video. Comment down below what you think of Kawhi so far this playoffs, and if you agree or disagree with my take on how he's been the best player in the NBA playoffs so far. If you enjoyed, be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you all next video.